work out with on Sunday. Him and his wife are like close family friends with my wife. So all of a sudden he's like very passionate about getting jacked. Like he wants to get like strong, but he also just wants to work out once a week, which is cool. So the last time I worked out on Sunday, he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm thinking of adding another day." I'm like, "Yeah, man, it's gonna be great." Like, because he has good genetics. So if he worked out twice a week, he'd be great.
How old is he?
Late 30s.
Is he very pretty lean?
He's already pretty lean already, yeah. But yeah, man, I mean, it's fun, man. I like it. Like, I can see how, like, in another life, I could have easily been a personal trainer. Yeah, because Aquazi, like, he gets a bunch of compliments and stuff from, like, people in his friend group and stuff. Like, yo, bro, you've been working out.
Because he's got, like, he probably just puts, any weight he does is probably pure muscle, right?
Yeah,
Quasi.
yeah.
He's lean like that.
And then he's training the right way, too. Like, I'm helping him and stuff like that. So
his problem's probably eating, right?
Yeah, initially, but not anymore.
No?
Yeah. Because he's been working out with me for almost 2 years now. So he's got a lot of it. He knows what he has to do, and he's figuring out his body. So he's seeing results, which is good. And then Steve too. Steve's been working out consistently. He's been doing like once a week with us, so he's put on some muscle, believe it or not, very quickly. So it's cool like seeing them like get better and stuff. And then work is going well too. Like I'm starting to figure things out. I've only been there a month, so it's very impressive. Like I just look back because I remember when I was first at Merrill, when I was in training, I was so impressed by people who were actually doing business before we've gone through training. But now it's like cool to be that person, right? And it's not like something I broadcast or anything, but it's just like having been in the industry for as long as I have, like, and it's not even that long. It's like what, like 7 years. I'm like, wow, like I'm really starting to like connect the dots. But I also understand that like 7 years from now, I'm even gonna connect the dots even more. So a lot of it is just time, right? So
That's also, I think, your approach to, like, you're, I think, a forever learner, where, like, you're like, always like, okay, like, I want to get better at this, or I want to, keep moving, because, like, I think you probably see it too, people get in a position, they're just like, okay, I'm here.
I know it all.
Yeah. And I think but the thing is, like, you're curious, like, you're like, I want to learn. So it's like, I think that keeps progressing. Like, I think that's the key, is just being curious and willing to learn and grow.
Curiosity is huge, bro, in anything in life, right? But that's so powerful, yeah, that you just unpacked that. Because I've always so curious how someone like builds. Because I have like two mentors at work now. One person is building their book like very aggressively and well. The other one has a very large book of business, right? And you know, like one of my mentors, he has a great story. Like, dude, like literally, like went through it, like went through it. Like it was crazy. Like it got to a point in his life where like he was fixing decks and stuff. And he just like, dude, he was like, bro, is this my life? But, fortunately he came into wealth management and built a very big book. But it's like very interesting. Like, I don't know whether to say that he's complacent, but he's definitely has admitted that to a point that he's like, bro, like, I'm not trying to grow anymore. Like, I'm at a point right now where like, I don't know. Like, I think he's like checked out. But I find it interesting because I'm like, technically you still could be locked in, right? At work. Because you don't have to take it home. And that would actually create less stress. Like maybe your focus could be, how do I make my business self-run? It's kind of like how you said, self-run itself and things of that nature. And there's a lot of opportunities in his business. Like he has a lot of clients. He has like 200 million in like treasuries. And I'm like, bro, those are all conversations that you can have with these people to shift them into managed solutions, and also for them not to be calling you all the time, like, because it's like they're constantly like calling you to renew treasuries, and we have products that will do it for them, right? And which would make your life easier and also make their life easier. That's one less thing they need to think about. But I find it interesting that he's just like, oh no, it's all right, man. I got my nice Beamer, and I get to check out at 3:00. Like I'm good, which I respect. But there's a lot of opportunities that come before him that he's not as privy to. When 8 years ago, he would be all over it. So I find
hungry.
So in my mind, I'm like, how does one stay hungry while at the same time not being obsessed, right?
I think that's curious.
Yeah.
I think that's what comes to, because like, and I think we all reach a point where it's like you get like comfortable.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like I'm at that point where it's like I'm good, you know.
Yeah. I don't want to grow anymore. I just
But then I feel like me myself, like I reached that point kind of where like I was like I thought I was good.
Yeah.
And then like I realized like why am I so unhappy? Because like you know like I accomplished goals that thought make me happy, and like I realized like you know progress makes me happy. And again, it doesn't have to be business, financial,
but progress in general.
But I think as
or
men,
the journey.
the men, it's I don't know if women so much, but men, like my viewpoint is like if you're not progressing, you're just not happy. Like if you're not progressing in your relationships, not progressing in your health, not progressing in your job, not anything. Like if you just feel like you're stagnant or going down, I think that's when you kind of like you feel like what's going on. Like you get that like it just as men, I think we need to progress, or you know people stop progressing and like they're like they have this like angst and then they just escape or numb it. And that's where I think a big like pot comes in, alcohol, just like you know, there's like trying to numb that feeling of like angst or like why am I? Because I you know it's like you're trying to escape because you're like I'm not happy, so I'm not moving a needle. So it's like, what do you do to become happy again? Okay, like you get drunk on the weekends. I see a lot. Especially like usually honestly like hypersensitive people, alcohol is a big thing. It's a lot bigger, like people don't really talk about it that much because it's so socially accepted.
It's huge, bro.
But especially like in the finance industry, it's huge.
Drinking alcohol, bro, but I just don't drink alcohol.
Like, it's very big in the finance industry.
I just have like a seltzer with like lemon, and they don't even know. I've even elevated. I even put bitters inside. I'm like, yeah, can I get a seltzer with like lime, with like bitters, aromatic bitters? It looks like a drink, but I'm not drinking. Just don't want to. I mean, like, because it's just not going to make me feel good, right? So, I will have a cupcake though. I'm not going to lie. I don't care. I'll eat. No, when I want a cupcake, I'm going to eat a cupcake. I don't care. I really don't care. Like, and I'm not like, oh, I'm gonna work out harder. Like, I'm gonna eat that cupcake.
That's a healthier mentality.
Yeah, bro. It's like, listen. If I'm gonna have empty calories, I'm gonna have a slice of pizza. I'm gonna have cupcake. I'm gonna have 3 spoons of ice cream. Like, I don't care. Like, no, literally, bro. Like, at least I know, like, it's sugar, it's glucose. Like, you know, I can burn that up. But alcohol dehydrogenase, I'm not trying to like go through that.
It's poison.
No, but it's interesting. You're right, man. Like in finance or in general, like alcohol is just a big like outlet. And I'm just like, bro, like it's very people like to get wild too with the alcohol. I guess it's because they're doing what they don't like, but
and they want to black out escape.
They want to black out escape, but it's like, bro, I actually don't want to escape my life. Like I'm trying to find ways to be more effective, yes, but I'm also trying to find ways to also progress. So I think. In my specific scenario, if there's ever a situation where I get to like my mentor where like I'm feeling stagnant, I'm just gonna shift into leadership. Because now with leadership, at least I'm gonna have like you remember the Lakers, what's the name of the coach? The tall guy.
I'm the worst.
Okay, so anyway, there's a coach, like he's one of famous coach. He was a white dude. He coached Kobe Bryant. Like he was like a Zen dude, like he was super like chill. But long story short, like being a coach or being like what's it called? Managing people, one of the benefits of that is that you run into people who are either as hungry or more hungry as you at young, and then your focus it doesn't become you being like a savage. Now it's like, okay, how do I help this person not shoot themselves in the foot? You know Nick Saban though, right? Okay, Nick Saban, cool. So you think about Nick Saban. Nick Saban, when he was younger, he was a go-getter. He wanted to go get it. But it gets to a point in your life that you can't do that anymore, right? So you can't be that person. So what do? You mentor and you uplift younger guys who have the same, sometimes even more mental than you. And I think that's what I would shift into. So.
And that's the thing, like I feel like that's for you why like you'll keep progressing because like, you know, you're curious, like you want to learn new things, like you're exploring new options, like you're like, oh, okay, so I mastered this realm, why do I get more leadership realm, like mentor now, like, you know, I think that's the thing, is like you're just always looking towards different ways to implement different skills. I think we get, even myself, I was guilty of this, like you get short-sighted and stuck in like, you know, the same kind of thought process or like environment. They're like, okay, I progress as much as here as I think I can, and like this is the only world I know.
Yeah.
And so like those like what else is there? You know, this is it. Like I reached the pinnacle of whatever running a business, like, and this is it. But now I know that's not the truth, because like, okay, I could, you know, start another business, get into consulting, you know, could do mentorship.
So many options out there.
There's so many things.
But you also want to make sure that those options also don't debilitate you. Because I think I hope one thing you've noticed in my life is, although there's a lot of stuff happening in my life, I still keep the main thing the main thing. Like, God, Jesus Christ is my Lord. I love my wife, amazing, and I'm a family man. Like, those are my top priorities in life. So like, no matter whatever I'm doing in life, like, I'm still going to like keep the main thing the main thing. Like, I'm not gonna waver the time with my family. You know, I'm not gonna waver my faith. Like, those are the things that are immovable.
They're like,
so in light of me talking about the managerial role and all that stuff, right? Like, I'm not gonna take on something that's gonna make me not be there and present for my family. You know, like, and even if my schedule changes in a way, like now I'm coming home a little later. My weekends, I try to keep them as open as possible to just stay home and do, like, you know, just be there. And I try to schedule things, like, so me and my wife do things together. Like, when I'm going somewhere, it's like, no, let's go together. Like, because it's like, that's the main thing, right? So I think that's also something to think about. We should progress, right? But not at the cost of things that are very important to our identity. So for me, my family, a huge part of my identity. My faith is a big part of my family. My children are a big part of my identity. Not family, my identity.
I think also for me, I was guilty of this in the past, is like progressing at what cost? You know, like, so I was willing, just honestly, to progress in the business sense and forsake like friendships and into relationships. I was just willing to be like, hey, that's gonna go to the back burner. I just want to be the best as possible at this and just make as much money or grow the business as possible. Yeah. And like, I consciously made that choice. Yeah. And it got me to a point where like, I was like, that was the wrong choice. Yeah. You know, but at the time, you know, I was young, naive, and like, that was the decision I made, and I chose to do that. And again, it did work, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, obviously, like, you know, but at what cost? It cost me, you know, feeling like, you know, alone, you know, not wanting to live anymore, not wanting to keep going. Like, what am I doing this all for? Like, you know, like, kind of existential crisis. Like, what is this all for? Like, if it's just for me,
you have more than enough already, bro.
I'm simple. Like, you know, I don't want this. Like, what am I doing this for? Because like, then I realized, like, well, what I'm really doing it for now is like, I want to do it for my family and my kids, so they can have, you know, a stable life where they don't have to. My kids don't have to stress the way I stressed. Yeah. Like, you know, they could like step into, like, see like how a business should be run. They step into this and be like, oh, like, okay, you can go to college and, you know, do your education you want, or, you know, dad runs a business and like, he's not crazy stressed. Like, him and mom have a great relationship, and like, step into that and like, you know, be their own boss if they want to, and like, you know, have generational wealth, if that makes sense. Like, you know, create that type of thing. Versus I was just doing it just to gross as much money as possible, and for me.
And it's like, bro, you don't need that. It's like, bro, it's like, like, so you're gonna stay in the cornfield and just harvest 17,000 acres of corn for yourself? Like, bro, like, what do you need that much corn for? You know. But now when you start thinking of other people, it becomes, you know, relevant.
And then that actually, like,
and they help you along the way too. That's the irony.
Yeah, it actually motivates you more in a weird way. Like, you know, yeah, you don't have as much time, honestly. Like, that's the thing. It's like. But I guess you learn to be more efficient or delegate better to create the space, like, you know, to then feed into that, it's relationship or friendships. Like, you like, it forces you to think differently to create more space, if that makes sense. Because like, usually just like, okay, from like 7 a.m. to 9 or 10 p.m., like, let's work. Yeah. But now it's like, okay, from like, you know, 7 a.m. to, let's just say like 5 or 6, work, and then now I have like 3-4 more hours. Like, I try to feed into like an intimate relationship or friendships. Yeah. So,
and I think to a certain degree, the scheduling is, you know, I'm very blessed that, like, you know, I have a schedule, right? But I don't adhere to it. I'm like, you know, I get into the office around 9:45 to 10. Some days I don't feel like coming in at 10, so I come in at 11. You know, or I come in for 5 minutes, I pop out like yesterday, I go spend time. I go spend time with my cousin. You know, like I just have lunch with them. Just listen to them. Like you know, like my day doesn't have to be like concrete. Like I don't like I just don't have to adhere to that because at the end of the day, like this is a marathon, not a sprint. Like if my tire's stuck in the mud right now, I don't know. Like my journey is still very long, so it's like I have two choices. I can either take a break, recruit help to help me push my carriage off out of the muck and mire, or I just like rest. I take a nap in the carriage and I wake up and I push it because it's like it's daily, right? It's a daily thing. So like we're all working towards like progress is a daily thing. So it's like not getting caught up in like the hurdle or the obstacle right now is so important because it's just going to make the experience better, like the outlook better. It's like, oh, like it rained, so there's mud. That's why my tire got stuck. But you know what? I've been pushing myself really hard these past 2 weeks. I'm going to take a nap. Literally, bro. Like, I that's the way I view life. It's not like I'm like, oh, in the future I could get stuck. It's like, well, if it does happen, I'll just take a step back. Or I may feel like talking to someone, or I may feel like just plowing through this particular thing.
Yeah. And I think for me,
being like fluid in that way.
It's like creating, like the last 2 weeks I didn't have therapy, or at least 1 week, maybe not two, because like he was moving, whatever, my therapist, and like it's crazy how like going 2 weeks without that, it just like,
or the podcast,
how it grounds me, like those things, and how like going 2 weeks without that or a week without both things was like, it's like wow, like it's just like that helped, like you know it keeps me centered, like those things are like very important. Like again, people be like, oh, like you know, from outside perspective, a lot like you know my parents don't get therapy, like whatever, but it's like I feel like even after a conversation with my therapist, like I was like, oh, like I get like a little glimpse of like feelings again, like it's like oh like a little like emotions are starting to like trickle back in. You know, like it was like it's weird. Like literally, I was driving after my therapy session, and I was like, wow, I feel something. Like there's you know, but it's like, but then like it went away. But like I was like, oh, there's something like you know, I felt something I haven't felt in the last like 2 weeks, like emotion, if that makes sense.
Well, it makes sense, man. Like, because a lot of times, like you said, a lot of the thought patterns you have, and a lot of the habits that you've created has taken emotion out of things. So you know, having a conversation that you don't really have an idea where the conversation is going to go, that exercise is a part of like it goes. It's the complete opposite of what you're doing, and then you feel emotion. Because it's very robotic to do the same thing at the same time every day. Like, that's not human. Just
that's what I usually do.
But it's not.
I know.
It's not human, you know? So, it's like, and just because you are doing that doesn't mean every single thing should be within the schedule, too.
Yeah.
There's certain things that should not be in schedule. And that's okay. But it's like, it's not all or nothing. Just because those things are not off schedule, that doesn't mean, like, you're being reckless. There's certain things that should be on schedule, but I think that's another thing you have to itemize. What needs to be on schedule and what does not have to be on schedule. And try to hold yourself to not keep those things on schedule. And see if that will help you feel.
Yeah.
I think that's a practical step.
Yeah. I think my biggest thing is I just want to, you know, feel again. Like that's where I'm trying to work towards now is like just getting back to that.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, part of it is just not having a schedule. Because when you consider going away for 2 weeks, you don't have a schedule. Costa Rica, you did not have a schedule.
There's a loose schedule.
Yeah, you had a schedule because towards the end, when you started feeling angsty again, you were starting to schedule things. But in the beginning, earlier on, when you were detached and you weren't doing any work, you actually felt free. But the second you started going back into your schedule, you had the angst again.
Yeah.
So I think the schedule is part of the things too. It's a symptom or something.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. Anything you want to close on, my friend?
Nope.
No? How's little AD doing?
He's good, man. He's going big. He's going big.
I haven't seen him in a while.
I know.
And it was Shalape's birthday last time I saw you.
Yeah.
She turned 2? No,
3.
Yep.
Yep.
This January, AD will be 1.
That's crazy, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yes, sir. And he's not stressing over anything.
I think that's the thing too. Is like talking about children.
Self-imposed. He doesn't have any self-imposed.
Life is stressful as it is.
Yeah.
And again, I know this. Like, I'm my own worst enemy in so many things. Like, I make things so much worse than they need to be. And like, the people say, you should like be like kids, be free. Like, there is something to be said about that.
Yeah.
I think it's just, I'm trying to break out of, a lot of it's just what, my defaults are. Does that make sense? Like,
And that's what was learned. That's what you observed growing up.
Like, that's just my default. It's like, it's just go. No emotions, no time for that, just do. And that's all I know. And like, I'm aware of it and I don't want to do that. But then it's like, when the wave or the muck gets heavier, my default's to go back to that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make
when
sense,
I'm
man.
like calmer, less things going on, I'm like,
it's like being in a fight and your bell is wrong. Like, you're not thinking at that point. It's like what your instinct. So your instinct may be to throw that inaccurate or inadequate overhand hook, which your coach has told you for years. Like,
exposes you to get
But that's what you're gonna do in that moment.
Yeah, I just default to like what I know, and what I know is not healthy. But it's like when I'm conscious, like it's like
you can do it.
We're like, okay, like this is like January, February, just like got well rested from Costa Rica. I'm like, oh, we'll work on these things, everything good. And then you probably saw over time, it just like May, June.
It's very
July,
interesting.
It's like,
and it's not like I didn't know. Going into the season,
I knew that too.
I was like, let's see when this whole thing is gonna break apart.
Yeah. And it wasn't
very progressive.
It wasn't a quick collapse. It was just like a slow, like it just slowly went, and then.
I just find it so interesting because I just was exactly the same. Whether I'm at work or I was at paternity leave, I'm like exactly the same. But for you, seasonally, it's like completely, vastly different.
You see it, it's just like, and you can watch it. It's just like it's a totally different person.
Yeah, and I think it's ironic too because with me, like my job, like I can actually like lose it, and like my family would be in trouble. And like it just, I just find it so interesting. Like I'm just like wow, like you really don't have that much on the line if you really think about it.
Oh, I think I have more on the line.
Oh, okay. So tell me why.
Because it's not just me; it's my family and people that work for me who are relying on me. Yeah. I'm not responsible for myself. I'm really responsible. Like my parents now are responsible for 3 salary guys I employ.
Yeah.
And like even people that are just over the summer, like they're like, I need this job. Like, so it's like, I think it's actually.
But they can always find another job.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I think it's.
But like if it was your children, that's actually more responsibility because they can't find another father.
You ain't wrong. Honestly,
like people fire themselves in your job, bro, because they don't take it seriously. Like the business, at the end of the day, like it's just that it's a business, right?
Yeah.
It could be alive, like right. It behaves kind of like an entity, but like at the end of the day, bro, like if it crumbled, like people will find another way. Like people can have their pool serviced by other people. All the people you're saying no to in the servicing pool are people not servicing their pools.
Oh yeah, it's a luxury service.
It's a luxury service, right? So it's like, I mean, yes, you're providing jobs for those people, but like at the very end of the day, like they will. Really matter. There's so many, and a lot of the guys you work with that are salaried, they have their own thing on their side. So literally, if you were to let them go, it would make them lean into their own business, and even be more self-reliant. Ironically. Which is like crazy, right?
Mm-hmm. But I feel like my parents now are relying on it.
Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are, man. Of course.
Yeah. I honestly felt like.
But your dad and mom will be fine, though.
They feel like they would have to cut back on how they live, but yes.
Literally, quite literally.
But what's it called?
But you understand that if you put a lot of pressure on that stuff, that's what's gonna happen. You're not gonna give time to yourself. Because you're just overthinking it. Your mom and dad, they're over 60. well, like you just handled the reins, what, 5 years ago? Like, bro, who's been, like, they've been
God
figuring it out.
God's had the
No,
reins.
but seriously, yeah. God.
God's had the reins. Trust me, God was a big
crazy though.
God was a big factor in that.
It's crazy though because it's
God
like,
took the wheel on that one.
It's wild, but like you're very like it's you because sometimes we have to like also realize like, bro, like it's not that serious. Like
that's the thing. It's like I literally have
because when you said that I had to push back.
No,
like, that's BS. Like that's absolutely BS.
You should because
like I have people's salaries. Like, bro, those people have their own businesses too. And if they believed in themselves how you believed in yourself, they would not be working for you right now. Because even those 20 pools that those pools that you rejected, if they, let's say for example, your guys have been taking on those pools that you've been rejecting over the last 5 years, they would have a business already, right? Because you reject what, 3 to 5 pools a year, 10, 20,
30 to 40.
So okay, so 3 times 5, so that's 150 pools. So if those 3 guys took 50 pools, they would have the same exact business you have. Yes, they would have to go around a lot more. That leads me to believe that like they could do it, but none of like they don't see it that way. Maybe they don't. Maybe they. I don't know whether they are talking to those people or whatnot. But like, if you rejected 30 pools a year for the last 5 years, 3 of those guys that you have salaried would have 50 pools each. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have what, 55 pools managed?
52.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
No, and you're so, and that thing is like, I know you're so right because like, I have a note in my house and I read it every morning, I'm like, it matters, but it doesn't really matter.
It
like,
doesn't matter.
I'm taking it so serious. Like, I don't know what shifted. Well, I know what shifted. We talked about that one moment, and like, since then.
Well, your dad's like, dude, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, because I was just like, chill. Like, everything was getting done. I was just like calm.
Yeah,
I was
but
like,
you can't let that shake you, bro.
Yeah, it did. And I know it did. And I gotta work through why that still shakes me and why I care so much that it does. That's what I gotta work through. I think that's like the last straw. Cause like,
you kind of missed it. That's the thing, bro. When you were happy, you missed the chin strap. So any opportunity to get back on, you were like excited. You know what I mean?
Because like then when he called me out, I'm like, I will run my head through a freaking wall.
No, but that's the thing. I think I would argue that you wanted to have the chin strap on. You missed it. You didn't like feeling.
At the time, I didn't miss it, but now that I'm back in it, it's a drug. It's you know, because you know when I'm pulling like a pool cover and like you know, I have to tap back into like that darkness, like you know that like.
I like that.
I do because I'm like I'm willing to die right now, and like you know this cover like I'm not gonna die, but like I'm just willing to like you know
lifts it all, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. I would make the argument that you wanted to, and that was just a catalyst. That was just it's like somebody who like is fat and like, or someone who wants to eat pizza, and you put yourself in a position where like people are eating pizza. Like, hey, you don't ask, you don't say anything, but you sit there. You're like looking at they're like, hey, you want a slice? You just go and take the slice immediately.
That's it. Like that. I just.
Or like people who go to bachelor parties with the idea of like being infidelity, like getting some infidelity, like doing some just getting dirty with some chicks, right? It's like you do that, you go to those bachelor parties with the idea of like trying to like that's the reason why you're there. You're not there. Like
you're not there to support.
People are not there to support the guy. They're there to just be a way to just do
pleasure. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, 1,000%. Like that's the intention. Is like I'm here. Again, there was not everybody, but majority.
Yeah, most of them are there for
this. Like I'm just gonna try to have the best time possible for myself, and that's just eat, drink, and do whatever.
Yeah, literally.
You know, like
go back to my life.
Yeah, and it's just like it's just seeing and like you know, and actually like being in that situation, I was like you know. Even if I was like a single man, I don't think I would want to be doing, you know, like, but I was just like, this just shows me, like, you know, maybe I was very blessed. Like, I have such a good relationship that, like,
you don't want the drama.
I'm just like, I'm not, like, you know, I'm so comfortable in my relationship. Like, I'm so good that, like, I'm not going to do anything to mess this up. Like, I'm just, you know, I'm just going to, like, I'll be here, like, support, but, like, you know, like, one of my buddies, like, asked me, like, we were at a pool party, and, like, we, like, took a cabana. And and like just all the dudes in Cabana, like kind of like your own space.
Yeah.
And he's like, let's go let's go dance by the DJ booth. I'm like, and like my one friend's in good shape too. I'm like, no, because like and I know if we go over there and start having a good time just like dancing, we're gonna attract unwanted attention. Why can't we just dance right here?
Yeah.
Like in our own space. Why do we have to go like
go
out there?
Because he wanted that unwanted attention, bro. He wanted it.
And I saw it, and me was like, I'm like, I literally told him like, dude, like, I'm like, you know what we're gonna attract when we go over there.
And he was like, yeah.
And he didn't have an answer.
He just went out. Yeah.
He's like, he looked at me, and he's like, oh shit. I'm like, I'm good right here, dude. I'm like, if we go over there, you know what we're gonna attract.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's engaged. Like, I'm like, there's nothing.
But he still went up.
I don't know if he went or not. Yeah. But like, like, I'm like, it's like this. I think it's
because then at that point he's not the one who's engaging, but that's the thing. You're aware of the process you're going down will lead to something, but because you're not the one necessarily doing it, they came up to you. It's like, well, I feel a lot less worse about it.
So much of life is like, again, saying, hey, I will never want to cheat on my spouse, but you also. You go to like a happy hour after the bar. You're like the pretty coworker, like, oh, like you drank a lot. I'll drive you home.
Yeah.
And like.
So that you put yourself in the situation.
So if you're like, hey, I'm gonna go to the happy hour. I'm not gonna drink, and like I'm just gonna go home. That's fine.
Different. Yeah.
But if you go to the happy hour and like the pretty coworker that's like you kind of been like talking with is crushing drinks, and she's like, oh, can you drive me home? And you're like. Yeah, I could drive you home. Like we're friends. I could drive you home, and then you go, you drive home. Like, oh, can you help me to my door? Like,
Are you going to coffee upstairs?
Yeah, like, oh, I want you. Oh, let me show you the thing I've been talking about, like this painting I made or whatever. Oh yeah, sure. Like,
and then boom.
And then when she comes on to you, versus if you just left the party, and didn't do anything. Yeah. It's just like so many people realize like a lot of like stuff that like. We end up doing is just like could be preventable by not putting yourself in a situation.
Exactly.
Like going to a grocery store hungry. Like
you're setting yourself up.
You're setting yourself for failure. And like that's so much I realize is like I know myself, like I could go out to a club and not do anything. Like I know I'm confident in myself that like if I did drink I wouldn't probably drink, but if I did drink, I know if I went to a club right now, like Miami, give you the beautiest girls, like I wouldn't do anything. Yeah. But why would I even put myself in that situation?
Yeah.
There's no good outcome.
Well, you're right. Like it's a lose-lose situation.
It's a lose-lose because, like, in the off chance that, like, I do go and then I do drink a lot, and then this beautiful girl, whatever, not likely, but a beautiful girl comes on to me and like starts like touching me and like I'm like, oh wow, it's amazing, like, and I have that one slip, like, but
game over.
It was this whole thing could have been prevented.
You put yourself in that proximity.
Exactly.
So it's like
it's a combination of choices by going and then drinking. Which
humans do that a lot, man. They put themselves in this situation.
And they're like,
they wonder why the outcome is negative. It's like, well, because you put yourself.
This could have been prevented. And it's like I think some people are like, I want to make a change, but it's like the change is not like when you're in the club drunk and someone comes on to you. That's not when you make that change. The change is like I'm not going to even put myself in a situation where that could happen. Yeah. But people don't realize that it's like so much of life is just like the situation you subject yourself to.
Yeah, man.
And that's what I realized. Like it's like, okay, there's no risk of me doing anything wrong because I'm just not going to go and
I'm not going to just put myself in proximity.
And it's like, why am I going to even do that?
That's where discipline kicks in too.
Yeah, but that night when I was like the only guy that didn't go to the club, like, people on the outside are like, hey, you're coming? Like, no, thank you. You're like, oh, come on, Tom, come on. I'm good. I'm go. And like people think like, oh, they're going to think you're weird or whatever. Yeah. They asked me twice and then no one cared. No one cares.
After themselves.
No one cares. That's the thing. People think like people care. Honestly, no one cares. Yeah. If I was an asshole, I'd be like, oh, you guys are losers for going to the club.
Now they would have cared.
Yeah, but I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm just going to stay back. Like, I'm like stressed out. I just want to have a good night's sleep. Like, have a good time. Like, I'll cook breakfast for you in the morning. I go in the morning, woke up early, got them bagels. I made them eggs. No one cares. No one, at the end of the day,
they really don't.
They're going to look back and be like, remember when Tom didn't go to the club?
No, they're going to remember when Tom cooked that bomb breakfast. That's what they're going to remember.
That's it. But, like, it's also the perspective. Like, because if I was like, I really want to go, but I'm not going, and I'm like, oh, like, I really want to go. I'm not going, like, and like,
then you go.
and like, oh, like, well, sorry, babe, like, you know, my friend X convinced me that I had to go. Like, you know, he's like, he peer pressured me. I had to do it. You don't have to fucking do anything.
You don't. You really don't.
And I think that's where, like, I realized, like, the power of just, like, being aware and just, like, not putting yourself in bad situations. Like, if you value something, you just, like, you know,